Hello and welcome to another episode of Inspiring Entrepreneurs. Today I've got someone who is truly inspiring. She's been inspiring me for quite a long time, and her name is Shari Khan. Hello Shari, it's lovely to talk to you again.
Oh, and thank you for such a lovely introduction, really. Lovely to be here.
Shari, oh that's great. Shari, would you like to just introduce yourself to our viewers? Just tell us a little bit about your background and the business that you're running now.
Sure, I'd love to. So my business is called Transform, and we help organisations and individuals, and we work with managers as well, to really get to grips with the changes that are happening. So changes that are happening in the work environment, and because things are so busy and hectic at the moment, to help them become more balanced in life and in work, so that they can feel that they have a life outside of work as well. I mean, that's kind of going straight into what I do, but actually more generally, I work along organisations and people on change and resilience and management development, but coaching thrown into the mix as well.
Okay. Well, the reason I wanted to talk to you today was that I came across two questions on your website that really caught my imagine, which is what happened to being happy at work, and what happened to having a life. And I think that is just so true of almost everyone these days, you know, whether they run their own business or whether they have a job. It seems that because of our mobile technology, we've got this always on, people expected to respond to everything within a very short space of time, people working weekends, evenings, and just not being able to separate the working time from leisure time, or the rest of life, really. So who is it that you come across who suffers most from this?
Oh my goodness. Do you know, I'm absolutely amazed when I speak to people, because originally I would think it's people working in organisations, but when I speak to small business owners, I find it's the same thing. I speak to friends, I find it's the same thing. So it seems to be right across the board. It's almost a sign of the times.
So we've got an epidemic of stressed out people.
It absolutely feels like that, and I think the economic downturn really has got a lot to say for this, and that's not just in the UK. That is worldwide. You know, I have conversations with other people in other areas of the world, and it's a similar thing. It's a similar thing.
So typically, what will be suffering from? How would this demonstrate itself, or manifest itself in their lives?
Well, I think for a lot of people, their work conditions are changing. They're asked to do much more with far less. So there's more for less culture. And whether that means their size of their team is reducing, or they're just asked to work longer hours, or asked to do more in the hours that they do. There's lots of zero contract hours here in the UK for sure. So it's all the uncertainty around it, and people feeling overwhelmed with life. In general.
And so does that display itself? Does it appear as certain symptoms? Are people is it not sleeping well? Is it short temper? Is it relying on too much wine or drugs? Or how else does this sort of thing manifest itself?
And it is all of the above and more. But it's this feeling that you can't switch off. The brain just doesn't slow down, just on constant overdrive. And the demands seem to be coming from everywhere. And we don't help ourselves because we hang around with actually my mobile is on at the moment. I'm just going to switch that off. But our mobiles are on. We just give me a minute. Literally, I'm going to switch it.
That's great.
Yeah, and we don't do that. We don't do that at the right time. It's just on, and often what happens is your phone is by your bedside because you use it as an alarm clock. Yeah. And so when it's going ping, 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 you're looking at the messages. So yeah.
So when you are working with people, are there some very quick and easy tips that you can share with us now that people can put into practice that will help them if they're feeling like that?
There are lots, and actually, when I was thinking about what could I share, I was struggling to think which ones are going to be the best, the quickest. Two that I think, if we can just very quickly touch base. One of the things is that we are spending so much of our time in left brain activities. So we're doing lots of running around. We are completing lots of tasks, following up on lots of other things, and that's great. Left brain stuff is great, but we need to balance it with right brain stuff as well, which is where creativity is, where music, emotions, all of those other things. So one of the very quick things that people can do is just think very quickly about one or two things that they could introduce back into their lives. I say back in because at some time they would have been there. It's just that they've just become so busy, everything else has dropped off. Think of one or two things that bring you pleasure, allow you to relax, and put those very quickly back into your diary, within the next few days. And it actually starts being something you look forward to doing. So that starts to take some of the pressure off the work culture. So that's a very, very quick thing.
Okay. So do you actually schedule these things into their calendars?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, yes. Yeah, because otherwise it's just something, and not on a to-do list, which is great as a starting point, but it's got to be scheduled, 2 hours or 1 hour, whatever it is. Yeah.
So scheduling in, I'm going to listen to my favourite kind of music from 7 o'clock till 8 o'clock at night. Is that the kind of thing that you mean?
Yeah, 2 hours is a long time, isn't it? But if that's what you decide to do, or take a nice relaxing bath and read a book or whatever it is, whatever, and maybe you can't afford 2 hours, maybe you can only afford 15 minutes, but that 15 minutes will make a big impact for you.
And are there any activities like that that you think are more effective than others? We're hearing a lot of at the moment about going for a walk, going for a run, being active rather than sedentary. So, in your experience, does that make a difference?
Well, I think it depends on what else is in the mix for you. So if you're running around a lot and are physical, then maybe you don't want to do something which is so active. Maybe go for something which is less, a bit more sedentary. But this thing of, yes, connecting with nature and all of those great things, going for a walk, all of those good things. But there's something, I think, which, and that all helps with creativity for sure, but there's something which I think we find hard to do, but it's a very, very simple thing. And it's getting a lot of traction over the last few years with this repackaging, reinvention called mindfulness, which it's out there. Nothing new. It's nothing new. It's ancient wisdom repackaged. That's all it is. But it's not something that you have to do, for a half-hour meditation or 1 hour meditation sitting in lotus position. No, not at all. It's something that we can train ourselves to do very quickly, very easily. I say very, very easily. It's like anything. It's changing a habit, isn't it? But sitting just for a couple of minutes to stop the mind chatter, just to calm down, because we were talking about the uncertainty and the overwhelm often that people feel. That's because there's just too much stuff going on, running around in your mind, in your brain. So one of the things that we look at is how can we quieten the mind? Because when the mind is working, and when you're stressed, it's overworking, you're using energy, you're wasting so much energy, it's unreal. And we know that because when we've had a restless night, you wake up tired. Now your body's been resting, you imagine, but actually because the mind's been going, it's taken up a lot of energy. You wake up tired. So resting the brain, resting the mind is really one of those things that we can learn to do ourselves, and we can do it in our own way. You don't have to go to a class to do it. And so what that does is, once you learn how to just stop the thoughts, and just finding a moment in there. And to start with, you'll find it hard to do, but with time, you have 30 seconds of actually just letting the mind be quiet. And what happens in that time is you actually get to rest in a way that your mind doesn't, and you can use that energy then for other things that your body needs.
I'm so pleased to hear you say that this thing about mindfulness is just repackaging stuff that has been around for years, because that there is this sort of thought that it's some kind of newfangled hippie new age thing. I don't know, and I know that puts people off. They dismiss it, and I guess the other thing that's going through my mind is that when you sit down to read a book or listen to music or go for a walk or something, how do you train your mind to switch off? Because I can read a page of a book 3 times and not take it in because my mind is actually thinking about something else. And the same when I go for a walk. You can appreciate what's around you and all the the blossom coming out and all that kind of thing, but your mind is still working on stuff.
Yeah, and that's okay, because that's how good ideas come, is when you're doing something unconnected to whatever it is your issue is, your problem is. The brain works like this, and that's fine if that's what it is. So if you're going for a walk to get new ideas and to just mull over ideas, find your own solutions, that's fine to do that. But the quietness that we're talking about in terms of the brain is really more to do with small snippets of quiet, small snippets of restfulness.
Okay. Well, that makes a lot more sense. So it's not saying to people, the classic thing, for this is to start meditating, and so people sit and stare at a candle and try and empty their mind, and as far as I know, that very rarely works. Certainly not to start with. But you're saying it's really about the tiny moments are just as beneficial as trying to do this for half an hour or something like that.
Well, absolutely, because everything starts with a tiny moment. We forget the significance of that tiny moment, because if you can do that for 5 seconds, and there is a trick to this, actually, there is a trick to it, but when you can do it for 5 seconds, you realize that you can do it. And it's as simple as that. We make these things to be so big and so awesome. They're not. So you can do it for 5 seconds. So you can do it. So the next time, you'll just do it for 10 seconds. And it's about just growing in confidence to know that you can do it. Actually, anybody can do it if we put our attention to it. So a lot of this is to do with what you decide to do.
Okay. So you said there's a trick to it. We can't let you get away with that without sharing the trick.
What is the trick? The trick is not thinking ahead. It's as simple as that. So you're just focusing on right now, just on this moment, because this is the only moment that we have. I mean, we talk about this a lot. Life is going to be like this, it's going to be like that, what the future will be like. But actually, we don't know. There is uncertainty. We don't know any of that. The only thing that we do know for certain is right now, this moment. So in this moment, I decide to just be. Not worry about all the problems that I know are there waiting when I, finish this hangout, or when I finish cooking, and when I finish that meeting, whatever it is. All those things just go on hold, because actually I can't do anything about those. The only thing I can control is right now. And it's one of these terms that's used a lot, living in the moment. What does it actually mean, living in the moment? It's about just putting your presence, putting everything that you have, all your goodness, all your energy into right now, doing the best that you can do. And so focusing on whatever.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So does that work equally for people who are living in the past all the time? You know, I come across a lot of people who are constantly replaying things that have happened and wishing they'd handled it differently, or wanting to go back and thinking of the grand retort that if only they had thought of it at the time, all that kind of stuff. So does it work equally well for that? Can you?
Well, they have harder to do. They have harder work to do, that's for sure. And assuming that there's, they're fine, they don't need to be counselled, then yes, it's possible to do, but their work will be harder, because letting go when you hold on so tightly to an attachment in the past can be hard. It can be hard, but my goodness, is it powerful when you can do it. Oh, and a lot of this is, when you say it's hard to do, what that really means is you haven't yet you haven't yet made the decision. Because when you decide, we are so powerful, we forget what we're capable of. If we put all of that decision making into, yes, I'm going to let go of this feeling that I have towards this person who made me feel blah, blah, blah. When you do that and decide to do it, you can move on. And deciding to do it will only be in one moment at a time. So next time you get that nagging feeling when you think of this person, you just let it go. You think, oh, yes, I'm going to change the way I think about this person. And just in that moment, you change. Not that you're not going to feel that again. You will, because you're going to break an old habit, and it will take time. But if you're actually doing it moment by moment, everything is achievable. Everything is achievable. Everything like this is, you can break that habit. You can get over that.
So what you're talking about, or what we've talked about so far, is that in order to break these habits, we have to do something different physically to start with. So creating some kind of activity or scheduling an activity that will make us feel happy or will bring us pleasure, like the reading, the listening to music, the exercise, whatever it is.
Mm. And those physical things are great, because they will create a space to be able to do something different.
Okay.
Yeah. And whether it's a physical thing that someone does or a thinking thing will depend on what it is they want to change.
Hmm. So if the physical thing is simply distracting from all the chatter, does it solve the problem, or does there still have to be a space where people actively think about thinking differently? This idea of thinking about thinking is something that intrigues me.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. So much written about it as well, thinking and smart thinking. That's the phone, but I'm just going to leave it. So yes, see if we can keep in the present moment here. It all starts with thinking. Even the doing happens later. It all starts with the thinking. Thinking that you're going to change the way you feel or react to someone, change the fact that you're just totally overworked and you need to get things back under control. It's the thought that happens first always. And having had the thought, then choosing, and that's the first thing, isn't it? It's the choice, choosing, am I going to carry on like this, or do I want to change something? And the thought and the power of the thought is so incredible that we can change our future, change what we feel. That happens automatically by changing the way you think about something. I mean, again, a newer field in the last 5 years. The whole area of neuroscience and being able to see the brain imagery of what's happening when you are thinking particular ways, in particular ways, and the pathways that are are traversed, that are kind of followed. So whereas before this used to be something that you had a feeling about, does it work or does it not? It absolutely does, and now there's evidence to prove it, should you need evidence. So yes, starting with a thought. And one of the things I talk about in the stuff that I do is the think, feel, do. And you don't actually have to worry about the second two of those steps. If you are committed to the thinking differently, that's the thing that starts the chain reaction, choosing to think differently. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. It does, because one of the things that intrigues me is that is it 2,500 years ago Aristotle discovered the secret to happiness, and now neuroscience is just he was right. I think that is just wonderful. It's great, but as you say, it has been around for so long, and it is just a case of taking ourselves back to that moment, isn't it? And as you say, believing that we are in charge, we can make the changes, and it's not about what's happening outside of us.
I think also, Anne, that you have this two camps. You have people who believe without having needed the evidence, and then you have people who are believing now, taking it more seriously now because there is a body of evidence. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. It's great. So, are there any other tips that you want to share with us this morning, Shari? Are there? I mean, I think just, this living right now, living in the moment is the biggest and thing that if someone's going to start changing something, to start doing, because it changes your whole perspective on your issues, on your problems, and potentially on your life. And it's one of the things that people who I've, who've been to various trainings with me keep coming back and saying, I realized what was possible when I realized I could change the way I was thinking, just actually by doing what I'm focusing on what I'm doing now. I cannot believe the big impact it's had. Can we just clarify the thinking in the moment thing? Because again, that for some people that means that they're not planning for the future. It's a sort of serendipity,
yes.
Fatalistic. I'm just going to accept what comes and and deal with it when it happens.
Okay, thank you.
I'm guessing that's not what you mean.
Absolutely not. Because earlier we were talking about, unless something is scheduled and in the diary, it doesn't exist. So the planning has got to be there, and planning not just in terms of the things that you have to do, moving all your to-do things onto into your diaries that's scheduled, but also the bigger thinking about actually what do you want your life to be? Is your life actually the life that you thought you were going to be living when you were this age? Now, for a lot of people, it isn't. But that's not to say that things can't change going forward. So some of the visioning that you're asking for another, possibly another tip, is to actually start thinking about some of the things that you wish you had done, which you are still able physically to do now going forward, and make those a reality in the next 12 months, 6 months, whatever it is. Yeah, so you have all of that planning in place. And even to, you've planned ahead your following week and everything else. But the living in the moment, what that does is it gets rid of the need to worry. And again, this is one of those things which is like magic dust. It really, really is. Because for a lot of people, it's worry that keeps them stuck. Worry that makes them miserable. It's worry that creates all the negativity, that's a lot of the negativity that's in their lives. So being in the moment actually allows you to stop worrying, because you have planned. You've planned everything, and you're going to just do your very, very best right now in this moment.
Yeah. And one of the things that I know I talk a lot about with people who are on my workshops and things is that most of the things that we worry about now, it's pure imagination that we're projecting on something, and we're using all this energy to to create misery about something that we've imagined in our, we've put into our own heads and is never likely to happen anyway. It just seems crazy.
It seems crazy, and also what's happening as a byproduct of that is the energy that the brain is using for that is stopping the cell regeneration, it's stopping all sorts of other things working well within the body. So, there's only a limited amount of energy that we have, so why waste it on that?
Mm. Yeah, we haven't really covered what effect this has on people physically. We've talked about not sleeping well, all that kind of thing. But, is there evidence that when people start practicing the things that you've just been talking about, that they do feel better physically, that they are in better health, that they are less prone to diseases or illnesses?
I'm just going to say yes. And then you can go and find. Because it's no
common sense. Yeah, I guess so. But I guess what was in my mind when I was asking that is that, again, there's an awful lot of stuff out there that says, you can take 10 years off your life, or you can get rid of cancer, or you can stop cells degenerating, or by juicing or detoxing and all this kind of stuff. There are so many false claims out there. I guess what I was after was saying, is it seems obvious there'd be a link, but is there something that really works?
Yeah, I mean, there is lots and lots of evidence, and this big body of evidence. We were talking about meditation earlier, the links between meditation and the difference it makes to the brain and then to the body. So, and I have to go back and think where I've read all of this stuff and where it's been referenced. But yes, there's a lot there, and it's there for the reading. But it is one of these things, isn't it? You get to a point where there's a limit to how much more evidence you need. That common sense tells you, and there's got to be balance. There's got to be a balance in the things that you do.
Well, that seems like a good moment for us to tell people where they can get some more help, some of the free resources that I know you have available.
Thank you. Yes. So on my website, there is a free tips. And the title is, it's called 7 Proven Ways to Build Your Resilience and Well-Being. And so that kind of gives you the 7 main areas. We've kind of touched on a few of the bits there. And then there's more free training that kind of leads on from.
Okay, and your website address will be on the bottom of the YouTube video, so people can click through from there and have a look. So it's 7 free tips to improve your resilience and well-being.
It is.
Okay.
And maybe also one of the other things we're saying is I'm running an online program for resilience and well-being, which is it's a 5-week period. It stretches over, but it's 1 hour a week and lots of other interaction within that program. And so what would be nice is for me to offer maybe a discount to that for people who are kind of coming through the Hangout. Okay,
great. So will details of that be on your website?
That will be, I think we're going to put that onto the YouTube channel as well.
Okay.
We'll put the code there maybe.
Yeah. Okay. So that's very, very, very kind. So you're going to offer a discount for your online course to anybody who's watching this video can access the discount code that we'll put on there.
That's great.
Okay, great. Shari, thank you so much for joining me. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, but it's great. I think the thing I like most about it is that you talk such common sense. In a world where there's so much sort of shamanism and all kinds of other dodgy stuff going on, it's just a joy to talk to someone who has it all in perspective and can talk about it without trying to wrap it up in all kinds of rather dodgy stuff. I'm not sure that's a compliment, actually.
No, I am choosing to take that as a compliment.
Good.
No, I did.
That's great. I'm sure we'll talk again soon, but thank you so much for joining me on the Hangout.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Bye for now.